Hey everyone, it's Jason Signal Culture here. I wanted to just spend a minute to kind of show you some new updates to Retrace. I know we already did a video on this, but there's actually some very exciting new things I've put in. And I think, really what I want to get a sense from you is before we release this new version, what kind of lingering questions you may have. So first and foremost, thank you all to our Patreon subscribers. I know we've been very busy trying to get the residency up and running. We haven't been putting out as much content. Trust me, we have some amazing things coming forward. Hank Rudolph is going to be doing a little bit of content for us, and there's going to be some kind of master classes that are really going to be available on Patreon. But this is for the general community. The new Retrace app is now audio reactive, has its own oscillators, but also I've outfitted it now to not only work with X position, Y position, zoom, X displays, Y displays, and Z displays. We also now have it attenuating the rotation on everything. So as you can see, granted it's not the final UI, but you can see we've actually edited out a lot of the interface, right? Because everything's going to be able to come in via oscillators that we have, or if you have your own Eurorec system, those oscillators. So today I have a Motu card, and that Motu card has 6 channels in, so I put up to 6 channels in the app. And then I also have my Eurorack that I'm going to feed in and kind of show you what that's all about. So these apps are going to respond to your kind of typical video synthesis, 60 hertz frequency kind of intervals of where things are stable and where things are going to move up or down that range, right? Now, with the through zero oscillators that we have in the app, so let's say, for instance, I want to put it on this oscillator. I want to put it on X position. Now, you're not going to see anything first because the sine wave that we're going to start with is right there. But if I bring this to the sides, look, it kind of just moves it because there's no frequency happening. But if I were to put the frequency up, right, we can hear it. The more I put it up on that X position, it'll do that, right? Now you're like, well, what's the difference between this way or that way? Well, that gets into more specific wave shaping. So if I were to do this in zoom, for instance, you can see it's going away from the camera versus towards the camera, right? And so you're going to get those kinds of shifts in that way. Now, when I'm talking about the 60 hertz frequency intervals, if I were to bring this down, let's say close to 60, right? And I were to fine tune it to be exactly 60, notice it's not doing anything because it's stable. It's locked to the internal frames per second of the renderer. But if I put it at 59, it'll start going that way. If I put it up to 61, it'll start moving a different direction, right? The loudness of it will be the attenuation of how far it goes. Now, if I have it going in that direction like that, and then I start adding square waves, we can see immediately how it starts to create different shapes. Now, what's really great is not only will you have 6 different oscillators that can control any combination of things. We can do Y position and X position at the same time and get some pretty fantastic results out of it. And of course, we attenuate those down closer to the top. We can see how it's starting to work in that way. But we also can bring audio in, right? So right now, I'm going to go to my Eurorack here. I'm going to have audio in on the zoom. And I have this oscillator fine-tuning that, and with this particular Your Analog oscillator, this oscillator has fundamental levels, odd, and even levels that are through zero wave shaping, and that will change the overall shape. And if I go to my mode tune and bring the volume down a little bit, right? Or right here, bring the volume down, right? We're attenuating that out in the Eurorack. So that'll be able to do that. One of the other differences, though, is if you do something like zoom, right? I can also then work with zoom while also doing that, right? So I can start to actually play with these things back and forth and perform with it, not just have the oscillators. The oscillators are happening on top of that zoom. In addition to X position, Y position, zoom, and all that, we've now have rotation controls. However, the rotation controls have attenuators. And the reason I put those in there is the rotation attenuators are going to help give a range of how far it goes that goes beyond just the volume, right? And I could do this and bring the volume down, but I felt like it was so touchy on the volume for rotation that it really would work better, you know. If we had this attenuator in here. So the question is, do you also want more attenuators on the other ones? It could be helpful. However, the problem with that ultimately is it becomes really bulky in the UI, right? And if you're using the internal oscillators here, you can kind of sort of attenuate, already with the amount of volume, but, that's really up to you. And the great thing about these rotations is if we bring these up and I start to rotate in several ways, we can start to create rather kind of complex shapes depending on the frequency we begin to get. Now, this doesn't just have to be on one oscillator. Notice it's a 300, which is why it's not really moving. If instead I wanted a different frequency for that other, for like rotate X, and I want it to be a square wave instead, we can see some of the opportunities immediately in this type of format. So, and then I did keep Spherize in here as well, so you can actually do a sphere on top of all that. And I, even though we can kind of get a sphere with this, I felt like having that Spherize function does give some difference. Now, I have it on tri-grid. If we put this on lines, as we can see, we can get all different kinds of lines, and well, these get pretty interesting and significant really quick, right? You can kind of really get in here and see all the potentials of that image processing immediately. We put it on tri-fan. It's getting a little crazy. On points, makes a really big points, and play with all different kinds of things. So I'm pretty excited about the overall potential here, and I hope you are too. So the question ultimately is like, is this great? Would you like to have things like, possibly even different types of backgrounds so you can composite things in? Would you like to be able to bring a siphon channel as the background? I mean, that's going to increase the processing quite a bit, but if it's something that you want as a potential thing moving forward, we could also do that. I mean, we could very easily composite in something from siphon, such as like frame buffer or whatever, into the background. It may fit a bit weird, but that's also a solution. I think possibly the best thing is to have you know, possibly a green background so you can green screen it into other things that you're doing in other apps. So let me know what you think. We're really excited to hear suggestions from the community. So hopefully you're listening. And yeah. So again, to recap, 6 different oscillators to control up to 9 parameters with 6 audio ins. So if you have a Motu M6, for instance, you could have 6 discrete audio ins from whatever system you're working with. And we'll do some little touches here and there. I plan to clamp down so we're not going to overdrive the audio too much. But beyond that, I'm guessing we're going to get this out in the next couple of weeks. So please get your suggestions in soon. And yeah, thank you all so much for your time, and thank you for your support. And we'll have news on not only more apps, but also the future of Signal Culture, which we are diligently working on getting a space as we speak. So hope that news comes soon. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.